What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Tim Macy Show. And today, I'm excited to have all the way from Utah, Mindy, but you may know her as Utah Mom.
I feel like I should have had my wig now.
I know. I thought you were going to be in costume for our interview today.
Maybe
I'm a
that's
little,
another podcast, Utah Mom
maybe,
and Tim Mason.
maybe so, maybe so. For those people who don't know you, which I think a good amount of my audience does, just give me a little 30-second origin story of you and your business and everything else.
Okay. I worked for a Fortune 500 builder in Phoenix, Arizona. I lived there 10 years. And I was blessed. The book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is dedicated to Larry Clark, who is Bob Kiyosaki's rich dad. I had the privilege of being his sales manager for the real estate agents at the Fortune 500 company he owned called Diamond Key Homes. Fell in love with real estate, had a passion for it. But at the time, I was really fervently working on fertility, having a baby. And so my fertility doctor said, don't get into real estate. It's too stressful. You don't need that kind. Now that totally makes sense to me, right? But when my kids went to school all day, I said, I think I could be really good at this. So I'm going to just take a chance on myself, go all in. And I had my license. I started the education. I think it took me 2 months maybe to finish it, took the test. And I was rookie of the year at my brokerage first year because it just went rockets right away. And I have been in the business now. It's almost my 13th year now in the business.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell me, early on, you hit Rookie of the Year. What was the thing that drove your business? What set Mindy apart from the other agents in the office that were just getting started?
I think one thing that set me apart, and I think there's a lot of successful agents that have this it thing. I call it the emotional quotient. I think that if you really give people 100% of yourself and they know they can trust you and you can make them laugh a little bit along the way because it is a really stressful process, but really giving the emotional side, it's a big purchase. It's a stressful purchase. But if they know that you have their back 100%, I just think that emotional quotient for me was high. I'm also very good with words and communication. And I think those are really key elements to any real estate transaction.
I agree with everything that you said, but I do think there are people out there that have those things that you just talked about, and that makes them very good at executing the business, being able to help a client through a real estate transaction, because so much of it's emotional and so much of it you need what you just talked about. But what I find is sometimes the people that have those characteristics aren't amazing at generating business. They're great at executing it, but they're not always the best at generating it. And so, how did you, as someone who is like that, also do whatever you needed to do to generate the business?
Well, this is kind of a fun story. So I got my license at the end of December. I kind of took a few weeks through the holiday to not do anything. I got my little kids at the time who I think were 6 and 7 years old. My broker talked about these door hangers, that low hanging fruit, right? The first time buyers. So I took my kids out on a February day and hung 2,000 of these door hangers with a toll free number they could call and generated the leads that way. And I told them as we were hanging these door hangers, we'd never been to Disneyland or Disney World at that point. And I
Yeah.
said, if mom can get a deal from these, we're going to go to Disney World. So it kept them going all day
Yeah.
in the cold doing this. And I think I received 7 or 8 leads. I was able to meet with a lender. I sat them down with a lender and had a face-to-face interview with them and was able to get all of those who called me under contract. And then they would refer, oh, my boss needs to sell, my coworker needs to buy. It just became this dichotomy of one after the other. So I think it was almost exactly a year later, we were standing in line waiting for a roller coaster at Magic Kingdom in Orlando. And my son, who was about 8 at the time, looked up at me and said, Mom, it's because you followed your dream and because we hung those door hangers, I'm going to try not to get emotional, that we're standing here today. And I thought, if they learn nothing else, it's that hard work and follow your dream. Get out there, pound the pavement, think outside the box, find creative marketing, be willing to put the work in. is the big thing.
Mindy, that is an amazing story. I just want to put one little asterisk next to it, which is that 7 people called you and you got 7 people under contract. And the reason I bring that up is I don't think one deal would have been enough to pay for a Disney trip. So I'm glad, I'm glad you got more out of
Valid.
that, because I that one deal equals a Disney trip. That is some major realtor math right there. So,
Realtor math. I like that. Yeah.
oh,
Valid.
I make 10K on a transaction, then I'll get all of that, and I won't have any expenses, and I can use it all on a Disney trip.
They said they call
Um,
it the Magic Kingdom because it's magic how fast the money flies out of your pocket.
yeah, I've never heard that, but I identify with it very much so. So look, let's progress. So one thing that you said was that you did those transactions, you got going, you got traction early by thinking like by doing the work. So everybody wants the magic thing that gets them the business without the work. And like a lot of us do have kids, and we do have soccer practices to bring them to, and we do have all the different things that the kids need to do. And I think there's something about saying, hey, kids, you're going to miss some time with your friends. There are probably some more fun activities you could be doing, but we're going to go work. There's something as a parent, I think, that doesn't feel good because I don't know about you, but I, as a parent, want to give my kids everything that I didn't have. And
Mhm.
I think along the way, sometimes we miss giving them the things that we did have, right? Which is some of that work, which is some of that stuff. So, talk to me about how you got your kids involved and sacrifice and got them on board with the sacrifice because I think
Yeah.
that's so important.
There's a great deal of sacrifice. And I think that, especially as a woman, there's a lot of mom guilt that
Yeah,
comes with jumping and running. And oh, I got it. I know I just got home, but this just listed, and now I've got to run and show this property. So I'll be gone 2 more hours. And so I've had a lot of deep conversations with my kids about it. They would accompany me when they weren't old enough to stay home alone. They would come and accompany me through showings. And I was just transparent with my client that this is a family business. I am a working mother, and sometimes they have to come with me. But my daughter we just had this conversation the other day. I said, "Do you feel like you were neglected with me being gone a lot, hustling for the deals?" And she said, "Mom, I always understood that when we were sitting in the Bahamas or we were in, Cancun, Mexico, I knew that it was because of the sacrifices we all made at home that we got those special memories together." And I think having those conversations when you are on vacation or you are in that mommy daughter or daddy daughter son date, whatever it is that the time you make for your kids because you have to create space for that, you remind them, listen, I wish that I was just an at home mom, like watching Netflix and eating an Oreo. But for some reason, that's just, I love what I do. And I get so much love from people within the industry. And because of that, we get this life that we never dreamed would be able to have. And that's my gift to you.
and I love that. I think we've talked about this a lot before, which is we all make goals for our business, and we all have a vision that we're chasing, and we all have our why. I think too many times we don't share that enough with the people that we love, and so when you're trying to figure out what your big picture vision is for what your business should look like, do you grab your significant other and have them on board with it? Do you share that with your kids? Or, I talk about having like there's a very fine line between having a family that supports you and you dragging your family through things while you're trying to accomplish your goals. And so much of it comes down to what you just said, which is how well do you communicate and how well do you get everybody on board with going in that direction, which sounds like you did at a very early phase in your career.
Because I tried so hard to become a mom. And with the fertility, I did 7 years of fertility. So I wasn't even sure it would happen. And then
Yeah.
to have them now, my youngest is 16 years old and she's on Instagram. And I love, like last week, I received an award as one of the top 250 agents here in the Valley. And she reposted it on her page and said, "I'm so proud of my mama." Right?
Yeah.
To see them see an example, watch me have an example of, "Hey, this sacrifice was all worth it, you guys, and you can do the same thing." I think that's the bigger message is that's important for me with my kids is whatever you want to do, you can do it. Don't be afraid to just go after it.
I love that. I think, it, what you just said, I think is so much of a missing piece for a lot of people when it comes to how they succeed with their family. Because you and I both know this is an industry that is filled with public successes and private failures. And, I think at least we do, you and I in our community, we like to take a whole life approach to business. Like we don't want public successes and private failures. And so these are definitely the things that we don't talk enough about is how do you be a parent? How do you be a mom while building this business and generating more leads and okay, how do I handle all this while being a mom? And I think that's a very tough one to navigate that we don't talk about much.
It is, and I think at the beginning of my career, it looks very different from now because I would jump and run at any given moment, and now I block time. I want to be the first person my kids see when they come home, and if
Yeah.
somebody wants me at that hour, then I'm okay if they go somewhere else because my number 1 will always be my family. And
Yeah.
people will wait for you. People will
Yeah.
people are very more I think there's a misconception that if I don't do this right when they want to do it, that they'll go somewhere else. But I have found that people are very respectful of family, especially here in Utah, very
Yeah.
respectful of your time and family
Yeah.
more than we give them credit for.
Well, I do think I did that little work life balance video. Like work life balance is a myth. You put
Yeah.
in the work and you make your work your whole life. And if you do that, your work will give you a good life. And yeah, I think when you're starting out, you are that person that's throwing the door hangers and has the kids out there doing the thing and all the stuff. And you're working and you are speed to lead and you are all over it and you are available 24/7, 365 because you're getting started. And I think that new agent mindset is important because I think there's a lot of people that went through 2020, 2021 when things were super easy. And then when things pulled back a little bit, like they had done enough in the last 2, 3 years that they didn't want to go back to the new agent mindset. And so I think it's important to be all over it all the time when you're building your reputation, when you're building your business. But then you're right. Like as you get to a point, like people respect you and they want to work with you and they value your time. When you build a business where people value your time, it's a lot easier to be more structured on what time you give them. But if you build a business and you never build that reputation, you never build that rapport, you never build that respect with your clients, you'll constantly be chasing and never be able to take your time back. And so I think one of the keys to people to, be able to have a business where you can say, hey, I'm not available on this time because I have family time. Like in order to get to that point, you have to build a business where the consumer values your time. And so
Yeah.
when you have a client that doesn't, they obviously don't value your time. And you can get mad about that. And it can be like, they don't value my time. They're the worst. That doesn't really help you out, just complaining about them.
Mm-mm.
Instead, it's like, what do I need to change in my business where people do value my time? Because I'll tell you what, I sit there in the waiting room of a doctor's office, which I hate going to, right? For like 40 minutes.
Mhm.
And then the doctor rolls in and I'm like, the doctor's here. Whatever time, you know what I mean? I value that time. And I think that's a big thing is when you can get people to value your time, you can take back control of it.
And I think it's tricky too because I've had clients reach out to me and say, "I know you're so busy and you probably don't do these little deals anymore." And
Ah,
so I think there's also that
yeah.
tightrope of letting people know there's no deal too small. You're
Yeah.
very important to me. It's just that concept of, "Are you
Yeah.
too busy for me?" That's also tricky to navigate. You want people to know you're busy and respect your time, but you don't want them to think you're too busy that they're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah. I love that. Always, always. That's a good problem to have, though. It's a good problem to have to juggle.
You're blessed to have that problem.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Look, let's transition
Okay.
into our social media story because I love what you've done over the last couple years. And I think it's pretty unique. And I think like agents can definitely learn from it. And so, tell me about kind of what social media looked like for you early on when you first started to dabble in posting things and whatnot, and kind of what that journey looked like to where you're at now.
Well, I can say with complete transparency, it was terrifying for me to start. I
Yeah,
was on the sidelines watching all kinds of people do video, and I just realized, oh my gosh, this is where our industry's headed. And if I don't jump on this, then somebody else is going to take the leads that I could be getting from having a presence on social media. And I'm
yeah,
very competitive. I did not like that idea. And that there was nobody really at the time in my market with this super huge presence on social media. So in 2020, my daughter and her friends were doing the TikTok thing.
yeah,
And I thought, well, that's there was an anonymity to that that I liked. Who's really going to see it? Kind of a thing, you know? So
yeah.
I was like, well, I'll start there. And I was
Well, because
watching,
you didn't none of your friends were on TikTok.
none of my friends were on TikTok.
Yeah, so it was like
No.
it was a safe space for you to have a little fun and not feel embarrassed by people seeing it.
Right. And I was like
I
almost
love it.
50 years old. So I was like,
Yeah,
TikTok's the teenager site, is really
yeah,
what I thought. And Instagram, I felt kind of that way about Instagram too. So I was watching my daughter and her friends do things. And then I joined Real Broker and I
yep,
saw people within this brokerage doing the coolest stuff that I had long dreamed of doing, like parody stuff, rap music, voiceover, and things like that. And I was like, you know what, Mindy? What are you going to do? I wanted to do something very different that nobody else
yep,
was doing. All of my friends and my clients who know me know I love to do silly voices. I love to
yeah.
just speak funny ways. At home, me and my daughter constantly are like, are y'all going to come to dinner tonight? We just do weird things like that. And
Yeah.
so I jumped on a mastermind call that you were a part of. And we were all kind of brainstorming, and I think you said find something different or niche about Utah and bite on that. And
Well,
so go
I
ahead.
I think to pause a little bit, you were doing these videos where you, like, were going back and forth with different characters of
Yes.
yourself, and so you had one where it was, like, you talking to a teenager about investing in real estate, and the teenager's like, "Mom, I want to invest in real estate," and it was funny, and
3%
it
down
yeah,
with the gaming headset.
with the
You
gaming, it
and the
was
vote
really
for
funny.
Pedro t-shirt. Yeah.
And so, and it did well on TikTok, right?
Like a
It got like
100,000 or 200,000 views. It did okay. Yeah.
I like your nonchalantness. Yeah, 100,000, 200,000 views. So what Mindy was doing was she was making these funny videos, right? Like the kid wants to invest in real estate and them old, like, what was it, like grandma or
There was a
something?
grandma, a rich grandma.
A rich grandma.
There was a sugar baby that was trying to get her
Yeah,
sugar
yeah,
daddy to buy real
yeah.
estate.
And
Yeah.
so she was making all these funny characters that were just kind of funny to everyone, right? And you were getting some views, you were getting an
Yeah.
audience. Like it was kind of you were doing this thing, you were having fun with it, and that was fun. But I think there came a point too, though, where you started growing an audience, and you got these views, and you got this stuff, and you're like, but there's no business, right? There's no business coming from it, and how do you tweak to actually drive some business from this audience you're building, and from the people you're making laugh, and from the hundreds of thousands of views you were getting, and that's kind of the discussion we were having when we kind of pivoted to, okay, how can you tweak this to generate business?
Yeah, go hyper local, essentially. How do I get local
Yeah.
business from this? And so that's when Utah Mom was born, and I started making fun of having extra wives. I need a bigger house. I tried to keep it a little bit relatable to real estate so that they
Yeah.
would make the connection that, oh, well, she must do real estate too, because there was
Yeah.
realtor Mindy conversation talking to Utah Mom with the Stanley Cups and the blonde hair and all of the things Utah is famous
Yeah.
for. And that video that, oh, I need a bigger house my husband's taking a second wife, kind of a thing that was very taboo, truly in
Yeah.
my market. I got a lot of haters within my market that said, "Don't post the video." I sent it out to people to see what the reaction would be to other
Yep.
realtor no, don't do it. That is no, that's gonna be offensive. I've taken messages since that are like, "Can I talk to you about your social media? It's a little offensive." And for me, I was like, "It's working." I'm getting direct messages like, "Oh, I love your stuff." Questions about real estate, leads.
Yeah.
"Oh, why don't we sit down? Why don't we meet with a lender and sit down and talk about it?" And I had the best year. I mean, with social media, it takes time, but I had the best year of my career last year in a
Yeah.
down market. And I attribute a lot of that to being top of mind on social media, lead generating on social media, because I posted on Instagram too.
Hmm.
And I have a link tree. So everybody who goes to my TikTok, which is 100,000 followers plus now, ended up on my Instagram. So there's 46,000 there. And more important than followers is I'm getting the right people in the
Yeah.
Utah market reaching out to me.
So here's a couple of things I like to unpack around this. So one, I think you were being funny to the general population, and I remember, us having this conversation. It's like, Mindy, how do you be funny to specifically Utah? Because people love seeing like the inside joke in their area, the thing that like only people in San Antonio, Texas will think is funny. A bunch of people from San Antonio, Texas are going to watch. And so not only do you niche down your audience to your actual market, what we found was that by niching down the audience in making things funny for just people in Utah, you actually went larger. So the videos, by narrowing the audience, you actually got a lot more traction and more views and more engagement from the audience. And then the other big thing was when you sent out that the video that probably did the most for you. We sent it out to a bunch of realtors. They all said, you can't do this. No way. This isn't great. And that is just a great example of agents not understanding social media and the consumer. Right now,
Yes.
we've got Brad the realtor does aggressive home tours right here in my market in San Antonio. And what's funny is I've had so many agents hit me up and say, Tim, like this is bad, this is offensive. He's doing wrong by the industry. They're all complaining about all this stuff from this guy's house tours because he like is a little profane. He makes funny jokes about the house. He makes fun of the house. He makes fun of himself.
Yeah.
And people are
I've
like,
seen him.
this is not professional or realtors, whatever. But what's great is you go in the comment sections and people love him. They're like, dude, I wish my realtor was like this. I wish I could
Yes.
buy a house from this guy. I would buy a paperclip from this guy. Like, and so what there is there's this disconnect between who we think we are and what the consumer actually thinks. And if we learned anything from these trials and everything in the last however long, like the consumer doesn't think much of us. If you ask realtors,
No.
it's we are proud of the R and we are professional and we are this and we are that. It's like, public doesn't think so. They think you're a bunch of crooks. And so what I love is it's that mindset that a lot of times discourages you from posting something like that. But what I want to know is, and for full transparency, like you are taking on the tall where Alice, my third graders learning about tall tales. You are taking the tall tale of Utah Mormon mom who has a bunch of kids and is just, that thing. So you are taking like the most exaggerated, sarcastic take on this thing. And so I think when people look at that, they're like, oh my goodness, I hope you don't plan on having any Mormon clients because they're going to be super offended by this. And that's the agent perspective. Tell
Yeah.
me what it tell me what it actually played out like in real life.
Been so great. Um, I think she's adorable. Like, I feel like she's not me, which is crazy, which I'm like, oh, I must be doing it right because I don't even feel like she's me, but yet I am her. And so I just think I had one client that was a $2.3 million client, and they
Yeah.
came to the closing table. She had seen my stuff on social media, and her husband hadn't. And they are hyper conservative Mormon people. And when we
Yeah.
got to the closing table, I walked in with the closing basket, sat down, and she goes, and he said, we binge watched all of your videos. I don't have social media, but she sat me down and we watched every video last night in bed. And I was dying laughing. And I'm like, are you offended? I was like nervous for what was next. And
Yeah.
he's like, all I can say is, if you weren't already my agent, I would have chosen you for my agent. You have such a
Yeah.
great sense of humor. And I was like, oh, yes. And then they have referred me a couple other $1 million clients, and they all binge watch before they call me. So there's that familiarity of, oh, I love your stuff. Like we watched 5 or 6 videos yesterday.
Yeah.
It's weird how I would have never, ever guessed, but the whole reason I did it was to stay top of mind with my sphere. I have a
Yep.
large client base. And so for me to have lunch with all of them is impossible. And so I'm like, well, this will at least keep my face in front of
Yeah.
them and they'll remember that I'm goofy and silly. But I am very serious. I've tried to do other videos since that show my knowledge of the market and things like that. So,
Well, what's interesting, makes me think about a couple things. One, I feel bad for agents who are like, "Hey, I'm not funny. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm good at my job. I'm not funny." And if you're not funny, you should not try to be funny on social media because that can lead to a whole other problem. Then you're just cringy, and that's different. So, look, if you're not funny, you're not funny. That's fine. You don't have to be funny on social media. I think the thing though that people don't understand is why do these agents that are funny generate so much business? Why do people want to work with someone that's funny? And I think it's an interesting dynamic. Our buddy Trey Serrano talks about the digital mayor thing. And the digital mayor thing is a crock. Nobody wants to talk to the mayor. They want to talk to the citizen. Don't be the digital mayor, be the digital citizen because people trust the citizen more than they trust the mayor. And
I like
what I
that.
think is even more true too is I think we trust comedians. Like we trust comedians because they tend to call out the things that are not cool, and you just trust them because they're funny and they don't have some ulterior motive. And so I think
Yeah.
Christians are probably the ones that laugh at Christian comedy the most. I think like we like to laugh at ourselves, and I think we inherently trust the person that makes us laugh. And so
Yeah.
when I look at that, it's of of course Mormon people thought that was funny. Like
Yeah.
anybody that can laugh at themselves a little bit, and people who can't laugh at themselves probably aren't people you want to work with anyways.
Right. You can't not notice that we have a specific culture that does specific peculiar things, and that's okay. And
Yeah.
so I agree with that. And I think that it's relatable. It makes you more of a real human, that you're not sitting up on a pedestal like I am the most beautiful person
Yeah.
and I am the smartest person. Like, no, people like real people that they can relate to, that have a heart, that will get in the trenches with them through the hard and still come out winning and laughing
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah, I like that. I think we naturally just trust people that make us laugh. And again, I am not encouraging people to go start making funny realtor content because I think most of it bombs. I think the reason why you did so well with it is it was something unique to your avatar, like it was something unique to your area, and you are naturally charismatic and funny on camera. So
Oh,
so it
thank
it
you.
it works. But I talk to agents all the time. They're like, why is this generating this person business? Why are they posting this? Why does this work? And it's the same thing when you sent that video out to a bunch of realtors and they all told you not to post it. It's
Yeah.
like, because they don't get it either. And so, and
And
not
I
that there's anything
say,
wrong with the
like,
people that said no.
listening to your gut, because there was a moment
Yeah.
where I'm like, "Ah, maybe I shouldn't." But then
Yeah.
there was this inner voice that said, "You've already done the work. You've methodically thought this through." I truly thought that character through in great
Yeah.
detail before I did anything with it. And so I'm like, what a bunch of wasted time if you don't just take a chance. Just
Yeah.
and I was terrified. And the first time I posted the video, I'm like, oh, there's more. I got 5 double chins and I look old and tired. Like you start picking yourself apart, but it literally is, oh, well, you have to have and oh well, approach to it, dust it
Yeah.
off. And, maybe I'll do better next time. Next time, I'm going to spend a little more time thinking through the dialogue. Next time,
Yeah.
I'm going to spend a little more time. I look at my old videos and I think they're cringy, a lot of them. But
Yeah.
obviously, there was that one video that we talked about had 900, almost a million views on it. And who knew? If I wouldn't have posted that, I would, you don't know what you don't know, right?
You don't know what you don't
But
know.
I just think about it like, I'm so glad I did that. It's taken me
Yeah.
so many great places.
I love that. I love that. Um, I mean, we can also talk about the fact that, I think when you got into it, you kind of looked at things like, oh, this is a young person's game here. And I know I deal with that too. I get those calls where they're like, Tim, I get it. That's what the young people do, but what can I do? And I would say your demo is past what I think a lot of people your age would consider is an opportunity, right? On
Mhm,
social. So
for sure.
how'd you deal with that? What's your perspective on that now that you've kind of built what you've built?
I think social media is very different even from 3 or 4 years ago. And so now I'm coming on my 3rd, it'll be 3 years in May that I started my
Hmm.
TikTok page. And I would say, if you let other people determine your limit, that's on you. It really has to come down to the mental. I have to pep talk myself all the time, like, it's okay if I'm older. I see people older than me, realtors or financial advisors or other people doing amazing things and giving great information and value on social media. You can't let age, you can't let sex, you can't let anything that you are stop you from being the person you can be. Only you can deliver authenticity for your brand, for your personality. You have something special. If it's not funny, it's something else. You have something, and the world needs it. You have a gift, you have a talent the world needs. Share it. Stop hiding it. Get out here with the rest of us and look like an idiot. It's fun.
And the other thing is, what do you say to kind of find, because you found your voice, you found your thing, like how do you find that? Because I know it's so hard watching everybody else to try to figure out what direction to go in.
I still, when I watch other people's social media, I'm going to be completely honest and real about this. I feel like, did I screw up doing this goofy thing? There's so many people doing such amazing things on social. Do people still like this? Are they? This is something I think about a lot. Are people just sick of it? Should I stop doing Utah Mom? Are people like, oh, this again? Like, that is a real thing when you're creating content. Do people really want to see this? But again, it's a lot of self-talk of, "Hey, I'm just gonna keep going," and the right people, and so I keep posting Utah Mom, and I'm not getting 900,000 views, but I am getting 36,000 or 45,000 or 50 something thousand, which tells me there are people, the right people have stayed on the
Yeah.
channel and are here for it, and those are the people that I'm really trying to connect with and generate leads from.
Well, and I think you've got a interesting dynamic there as well. I think that you can get into analysis paralysis and let it stop you. But on the same hand, I think we're always looking to pivot and improve. Every great content creator I talk to, like they're always pivoting and stuff. But it's when you take that analysis and let it slow you down is the
Yeah,
big difference. I mean, even stumbling into Utah Mom was a pivot, right? So it's
yeah.
great to constantly be adjusting and pivoting, because I do think that sometimes we hit on something and we get relaxed and just assume we could keep doing the same old thing and it'll keep working the way it used to. When you have to stay in that mode of analysis and figuring out what the way you're going to pivot is next.
And
The
evolving,
and evolve. That's the word. Evolving. So much
evolving.
better word.
Yeah.
But the problem is sometimes we start to maybe see our numbers go down. Maybe we're doing it. We don't know if it's working anymore. And instead of evolving, pivoting, and moving forward, we stop.
Yeah.
We stop. Or we totally abandoned what we're doing and we try something completely different. And I think those are the two things I see people do where they lose. Whereas when you pivot and evolve, you win. And it's such a balance though between not letting stuff stop you, but also not just keep doing the same thing over and over again if it's not going to work.
Right. And there's so many different platforms. So I post things on Instagram that I don't post on TikTok because Utah Mom is like you gave me that piece of advice. Utah Mom is the star of the show now on
Yeah.
TikTok, right? So I just leave her alone on her grid to do her thing over there because it works.
Yeah.
But on Instagram, I do different realtor content because that's a different crowd. And
Audience.
so is
Yeah.
Facebook. So if you're not comfortable with one of those or with all of those platforms and being on all of them, because it can be overwhelming, as you know,
Yeah.
find one, choose one, and just dedicate yourself to the consistency of doing the one, and good things will happen.
I love it. Mindy, we've talked, man, we talked about getting started. We talked about having a family and a business. We talked about mom guilt, which could probably, we could do a whole episode there
Yeah.
on being a parent and running a business. And we talked about the evolution of your social media and what that's done for you. So, like all that said, if you had one thing you wanted to make sure people listening to this podcast got from you, what's your overall message for people?
I would say believe in yourself, go all in on yourself. There's a lot of agents that come to me for mentorship or help or just want to talk about how hard the business is starting. And my best advice to them is always go all in on you. If you believe in you, if you don't believe in you, nobody's going to believe in you. So be confident. Whatever that takes to build it, go for it. And don't let people wear you down. Just keep pushing. This is a business that is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think too many people get in the business feeling like it's a sprint when
Yeah,
really it's the slow and steady that will win that race. So believe in you. You have something great to bring to the business, to the world. Share it, give it.
I love that. I love that. Mindy, thank you for so much for coming on Best Place for people to connect with you.
Is at Mindy Cronquist on Instagram as well as TikTok. Or if you want, you can hit me up on email, mindysellsutah@gmail.com.
DM on the gram. No emails. Nobody
DM,
wants another
okay.
email,
Okay.
you know?
DM on the gram. DM me on the gram at Mindy Cronquist.
So you got it down. You got it. Do you have any more young people slang you can catch us up on? Because we're all out of the loop.
Young people I can what? Catch you up on.
Young people slang, like what are
Oh,
the kids saying?
oh, the slang. Oh my gosh. I heard the slow is now out. We've got the fit check every day at my house with my 16-year-old
Okay.
old daughter, and I'm trying
Yep.
to think of what how every day it's something. I should have
I
had
know.
something. I can't
Okay.
think of
Well,
anything.
let us know if you come across anything else. It's good
Okay.
to know that Slay is out
Plays
because
out.
I was just catching up on it. So let me know when the next thing is.
Okay. I will.
All right, Mindy. Thanks for being on.
Thanks
We'll
for
see you on the next
having
one.
me. Have a good day. Bye bye.